glad we figured out what we're talking about.
I should throw that out.
That worked out right now, right before we came on air. Brad, I want to say though, I feel like today your E3 has changed you. Like I can just tell the difference. Yeah, you're jaded. It's like you've seen things, like you've experienced things that nobody should experience. I don't know.
It's E3 is interesting because people always like get really excited about it, and they, you tell them you're going, and they're, oh, it's so cool, your job's so cool, and I'm like, I hate E3. It's so long, and especially like at CES, at least I would say like a good chunk of the people there are working. Whereas at E3, a lot of people are there not working. Is it a different mic?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch you out on mics.
So
there we go.
It's just depends. I think at E3, a lot of people are there because their company's peripherally related. And I know I've talked to people who said like, yeah, I can get a pass through my company. I pay my own way, and I take 2 days of vacation and come play video games. But I think a lot of people there were probably kind of disappointed because it's not the kind of conference where you can play a lot of games. I think a lot of people probably waited in line for several hours for a Sony session only to get in there and watch some other guy play Days Gone for 20 minutes. And they were probably very unhappy about that.
It was, I can imagine. Would that be you? Is that who you're referring to?
I mean, I understand. I get that that's what's going into it. But I think, when you write about the event and you hype it up for so many years as being this big thing and, oh, it's video games, it's all the video games, people don't realize that a lot of what those meetings are interviews, they're hands-off sessions, they're extended videos. They're not maybe a quarter of my appointments to a third of my appointments were hands-on appointments. Did not get to play a lot of video games.
So you are jaded.
I'm jaded, but I think it's I think trying to push it out to the public as being this big fun thing like PAXs or like Gamescom or Gen Con or any of those was kind of the wrong way to go about it.
Okay.
It really should have been pitched to them as you're going to see games, but you're probably not going to play them unless you wait. I mean, I knew people waited 2 or 3 hours to play Mario.
All right, well, let's bring the viewers in on this too. So, hello, this is Close to the Metal. This is our computing podcast that we do every week. We're doing it a day early today, where we talk about whatever is going on in the world of computing or technology that we specifically want to address. And today, we're going to be talking about E3 and PC gaming. There, I'm Greg Nibbler. Let's get our roundtable. We've already heard Brad's diatribe on E3, but that's good. I mean, that's a good inside look. So we've got Brad here.
How's it going?
And
Matt Smith.
And Matt Smith. So these two guys just got back from E3. You were there all week last week, right?
Yeah, we went down last Saturday and got back on Friday.
That's what it is. So it's a week in LA. That's what's turned you now. Now you're all Hollywood. Okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
All right. So they were down at E3, and one of the questions that we proposed on Facebook and YouTube, because we're broadcasting live on both of those right now, is what PC game from E3 are you most excited about? I mean, that's the thing about E3, like Brad was just explaining. There's a lot of stuff that goes on at these. There's a lot of announcements that come from companies, whether you can get hands-on experience with a lot of them is a different case down there, but we do hear of a lot of things. And today, we're going to talk about E3 and the PC games that people are most excited about. We're going to talk about the Xbox, because we have to. We have to talk about the new Xbox and a few other things, but we want your feedback. We want people to let us know what you're most excited about. And as far as games, Nick right here in the chat just said Far Cry 5. I got to say, that's probably what I'm most excited about too. I want to play that game. I love Far Cry 4, but Far Cry 5, yeah, it looks amazing.
Oh, yeah. I haven't played one of those since Far Cry 2, and I'm really excited for that one. So
Far Cry 4 is great. It's so good. We had a bunch of games, a bunch of people talking about it here. XCOM 2 DLC. How do you feel about that? XCOM?
I didn't really get that into XCOM. You really like XCOM, don't you?
Yeah, though I played XCOM a lot, and I haven't played XCOM 2.
I know our writer who wrote about that was really excited because Firaxis tends to not just add a mission onto the end as their DLC. They tend to sort of create something that really changes how you play the game each time, and it really attaches to the side of the game, for lack of a better term, and sort of integrates itself.
They do. It's really interesting. It's a really interesting idea. They do something called an expansion. And it adds a lot of content that fundamentally changes the game.
What?
And I think it's a really cool idea, really new. That hopefully we'll see more of that in PC gaming. So.
It's just groundbreaking stuff. That's what you're talking about. Really, really expansive things. All right. Well, let's talk about this. As we have people coming in with their comments. PUBG, best of E3. That's what Hanifa's saying. So there it is. Hashtag PUBG. So we've got a lot of people with their comments. So let us know what you think. But okay, so for you guys in particular, let's go down the list of what you really wanted to cover, and then in the PC side, in particular, as far as that is the best games. And I know you have, we've got a lot of articles up at digitaltrends.com that kind of cover a lot of these things, but let's go with this. What was most impressive? What stood out the most of the games?
Well, I mean, we'll get to it a bit. I think Destiny 2. But,
Destiny 2? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was
And why is
my
that?
standout.
Why do you think Destiny 2 stood out?
It's a game that I played a lot for console, and I think it has kind of a unique. Well, I wouldn't say unique. It feels like an MMO in that it's very much about community and talking to people and making friends, for lack of a better term. And
Okay.
it's something that the PC community has always been really passionate about, and they never really got. And on top of that, it's a game that I think benefits from a lot of precision. And not to be like that guy, but keyboard and mouse is just like, for me, it was a big change in the game and the way that the game played. To be able to consistently land headshots, to be able to switch weapons quickly and move and spin quickly, like it seemed to actually, it added a lot for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the meta game shakes out for Destiny 2 on the PC, because two things, it's more precise, so that's great. You got your keyboard and mouse, and you're way more accurate with that. And that's going to change which weapons are actually good in the game. I imagine that the weapons that are a little bit longer range and more precise are going to be better in the PC version. I also kind of wonder if it's going to make the game, if it's going to take away from the PvE elements of it. A little bit, because Destiny 2 has always been kind of like a shoot the weak point game. You know what I mean? And if the weak point's a lot easier to hit, I wonder how that's going to shake out. It seems like it could make the game a little less challenging. It also could make the game a little more focused on sort of the pop out, take some shots, get back to cover kind of gameplay. So,
Which they did add. There's now peeking in certain elements, so you can pop up over ledges or over shields, which is something you couldn't really do before. And they also, I think a big part of that, like you're saying, like the precision is a lot higher, and they've also moved shotguns and sniper rifles into the heavy weapon slot. So now they're going to be much less common in both PvE and PvP. And anyone who's played a lot of Destiny knows, like, the shotgun is king in PvP, and the sniper rifle is king in PvE, and that's how it works. Like, you bring your big sniper rifle in as your second weapon, and you shoot the guy in the head, and you get the one that, reloads when you get a headshot and all this stuff. It's really based around min-maxing, that sort of idea. And so without that thing, I do think, like scout rifles are going to be more interesting. Long-range weapons are going to be... It's going to be a more interesting game in general, more dynamic game.
Yeah.
But it could also totally screw with what people like about it,
Change
which
it up,
is,
yeah.
the fast-pacedness of it. If everyone's just running around shooting each other with assault rifles, it could feel more
Right.
like Call of Duty.
Change isn't always necessarily good.
Yeah.
If it's not
and
really
we
really...
did get to play it at 4K, 60 FPS on NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti.
Nice.
And it looked great. I think that visually it looks... So that game's art style in general kind of takes... It doesn't really focus a lot on polygon count. It's not super realistic. And a lot of elements of it are sort of stylized in a way where, like, if it's not... Like, whether or not it's super high polygon, you wouldn't really notice. Like, you don't look and be like, oh, like, that looks a little more square than it should be or whatever.
So they have more leeway kind of on what they can do with
And
with it.
that means the sharpness of the image at 4K is really nice. And you really notice that as an increase in the clarity of the game, the fluidity of the game, if you're playing at 60 FPS. I think that playing it at that resolution, you get more of a... There's almost more of an animation style to the game, like sort of I guess anime, but sort of westernized anime sort of look to it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel as much when it was on the console. I think because it was not as clear of an image, a little more blurry, but it's really well defined image on a high resolution monitor.
And I think they've leaned into that too, not just with the PC version, but with Destiny 2 in general. If you look at like the direction of especially some of the characters, like the main characters between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, they look a bit more, they're more animated. It's more like that space opera kind of feel that I think was really successful for them later on in Destiny 1. They didn't really have that.
Yeah.
In the first one, it was sort of dry and they were trying to be real kind of gritty and serious. And when they sort of embraced this like because I think, for the most part, a lot of MMOs are kind of goofy, like, and they kind
Right.
of roll with that as being like, that's fine, like, you know,
part of
but-
it. It's part of the
because, yeah, it's like
experience,
you're all the chosen one at the same time, and you know, and I feel like that sort of comes across, like they kind of play into that a little more in Destiny 2's story so far, and in the end, again, like Taken King, Rise of Iron stuff from the end of Destiny 1. They really, especially like Cade 6, Nathan Fillion's character, they put him right up front because he's a big voice actor and he's funny, and you know he's become
Nathan
like
Fillion, yeah.
So you know, why not use that?
Taking a look here on Facebook and YouTube again. We're talking about E3 right now. Talking about our favorite PC games from E3. Jack is saying Dragon Ball Fighter Z. Just comment on that. Which no,
It will be on PC.
it will be on PC. Okay.
I imagine that it's probably not going to be getting a lot of improvement from being played on PC.
Okay.
But you know, if you want to, you can.
Okay, good. So Dragon Ball Fighter Z. We've got Assassin's Creed Origins, which I admit I'm a big fan of the Assassin's Creed series. So I don't know about the last couple have been all right.
We saw that game.
Rogue was cool. I mean, not Rogue. What was the one before Rogue?
Black Flag?
Black Flag. Yeah,
That
Black
was
Flag.
that was a good one, yeah.
Black Flag was great. Yeah, because I like the pirate part of it. Which reminds me, Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves. Did you get a chance to play that at all, or?
I didn't play it. Saw people playing it.
Okay.
I think that we have different opinions on it. I'm not interested
Not so
in
much?
it at all.
Yeah.
I think Brad's pretty
That's
interested in it.
right up my alley.
Yeah, it's
absolutely,
right up
this
my
kind of
alley
game.
too. I mean, you can be a pirate, and okay.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
Yeah, for these games of like being with your friends and like running around on a pirate ship, like raiding islands and shooting other players. I just think it sounds super cool. And look at that water.
Yeah,
Like,
and we're
for
showing.
God's
If you're listening to the audio
Those
version,
have
we're
very
showing
nice
one of the
water.
trailers right now. Yeah, I mean, it looks impressive.
One thing I think is cool too, that was like a minor thing, but at the end of this trailer, they show it. There's the water isn't just flat. Like in a lot of games, the water is just the ocean, and breaking waves are just kind of cosmetic. But they show at like one point in this trailer, there's like a ship is up above another ship on the water. Like they're looking up at it as the waves swell, like this giant wave swells. I just think there's a lot of fun stuff going on here.
Yeah.
And then there's also in the same vein, there's the Skull and Bones.
Yeah, I didn't see much about Skull
And
and
that's the
Bones.
one that's more of the Assassin's Creed style.
It's the team that made the ship combat from Black Flag, and
Oh,
they
okay.
basically made like an arena shooter or arena pirate game.
just based on that?
Just based on that, so you have a ship.
It's
and
5v5. Pirate ships.
I think I might get
Or at least
bored
that's
with
one
that
of
one.
the.
That might get old pretty quick though. If it's just that's just the only element of it. I mean, a Sea of Thieves to me that looks really impressive, and I'm seeing some other people coming. SpongeBob Barnacles 3 was the game they're most excited about right here. That's Christopher. Zach also says Black Flag, great game, beaten the whole series so far. I have not played the entire series, but I'm definitely a fan of the pirate aspect of Black Flag. So let's talk about some other games here. Just going through the PC games before we get into some other aspects of E3 that we're going to talk about. And again, we want to hear your comments. So let us know what games you're most excited about. So do you want to talk about this one that you were most impressed with?
Lone Echo.
Lone Echo. So I was unfamiliar with Lone Echo. I'll be honest.
I saw this game back at Oculus Connect earlier this year. And it's really impressive. It was the first time like the touch controllers were really widely available, and room scale, and
so this is a
360
VR.
degrees where
It's for
VR
VR.
game,
Okay.
for the Rift. And the cool thing about it is that movement is this really difficult thing in VR that people haven't quite figured out. Like teleporting is one method, and moving, like walking, kind of makes people sick. And so what this game does,
That's the problem with a lot of VR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way this does it is it's like they said they watched like how it works on a spaceship. On like the International Space Station, you move with your arms.
So it's
You
zero
grab a
gravity.
ledge. It's zero gravity, and you reach out and you grab a ledge and you pull yourself along it, or you pull and let go and you kind of hurl yourself along.
I could see that being really disorienting though.
It
I mean,
actually works perfectly.
it?
Like you have this movement in your arms, and your legs are just sort of there. And
So because you don't
like,
use
you
your
don't
legs
use your
anyway.
legs. You're just standing there unless you turn, and it just becomes this very like you don't get sick from it. And one of the ways they did that is they actually said it's the acceleration that makes you sick. So you never really accelerate. You go from like totally still. Either you're pulling yourself 1-to-1, or when you launch yourself, you go straight to full speed, because they said that literally your brain just throws out those like 3 or 4 milliseconds of change as signal noise. Your brain's like, I don't know what to do with that, and just gets rid of it, and then you're fine.
Interesting.
And so the multiplayer version of this is like a 3-dimensional arena that's sort of part Ender's Game and part Ultimate Frisbee.
Okay.
So you're running around like hucking a disc to your friends who can score a goal. And I ended up playing like 3 or 4 rounds of this at Oculus Connect with people one night because it's so fun. Like it's really just like it's competitive and it feels precise and it feels good and you can punch people in the face and
So
it's just
just to clarify, well, okay, yeah, punching people in the face, that's always good. But so just to clarify, so it's multiplayer,
Well, so
but it's
Lone-
also in virtual reality.
Yes.
So how are they making this happen very well? That
Intel-
seems like that would be an issue.
Intel is giving away free copies. That's
Okay.
I think part of the plan is they're just giving away this game. There's Lone Echo is the single player game.
Okay.
And then Echo Arena is the multiplayer side of it, and they're separate games.
All right.
Built on the same system. And Intel is giving away the Echo Arena game, trying to get people to play multiplayer games and to get into that. And they're hosting a tournament for it too.
Yeah.
So I think this is, and I think they pointed directly to Star Trek VR, to Bridge Crew VR, as being one of these things of saying, like, people want multiplayer VR experiences.
Yeah.
And I think after playing Star Trek Bridge Crew, I totally agree. It's a lot of fun to sit there across from your friends in a Star Trek bridge and point at them and yell and be, waving in a map as Klingons are attacking you. Like, it feels very cool. And when you have this game, like, you're, even if you're standing in separate rooms, you can hear each other, you can talk.
Right.
And you can throw a disc and you can, hey, I'm centering. And it's just very, I don't know, it feels tight and it feels cool. And especially, like, throwing yourself, like, grabbing and throwing yourself across a room 40 feet, like, gliding through the air. And it's super epic. So
Okay. I mean, that does sound fun. That sounds like it's going to be kind of limited, though, because you'd have to have everybody would have to have
everybody has to have a
headsets.
headset.
And, yeah.
But at least you're not also like, and it's $30 per person.
Right. Yeah.
So,
it's the game's free.
yeah.
honestly.
So that's,
So you were saying something they're hoping to do it, turn it into like a VR esport?
They actually, it was funny
That's-
at the PC gaming show, they put the words VR esports on the screen and there was kind of a collective laugh of everyone like, oh yeah, sure. And then they sort of explained, they showed it, this game off, and they are introducing it this summer at their next Intel Extreme Masters tournament, like these big Intel esports tournaments. And there's going to be a tournament for Echo Arena. So they're really trying to make sure that that's, if it's happening, that's going to be one of the games on that list. So
Okay. All right. That's an interesting. What do you think about that, Matt? As far as VR esports in general.
I think VR esports could be a thing. Why not?
I feel like there's
like what the laughter is exactly what happened when people talked about esports. And
That's
now
true,
Esports
yeah.
are a gigantic
hundreds
thing. As the
of
whether or
millions
not
of dollars. Yeah.
this, I mean, I wouldn't expect this to take off immediately because like it's early days, and I actually talked to Intel a little bit in a separate meeting about the esports aspect of it, and they are definitely still figuring out like things like how do you want to present this to people who are watching. Like do you want to have cameras that are like on the people in real life?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And also seeing what they're seeing, or is there like an observer camera in the game that you want to have? There's a lot of like little details there, but at the same time, I also think that VR esports could be a more interesting thing to watch in a sense.
If you were wearing a VR headset, or would you watch it just on a screen on a regular screen?
You could do either.
Yeah.
Yeah. They talked about like you could have
Just be an observer in the game.
a VR observer thing where you have your own camera, or you could float around on your own in VR.
I could see that being cool.
You can do that in Dota 2 already, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can like watch Dota 2 games in VR, which is funny. Like somebody posted a video where they watched like a professional game from within like the Roshan pit, within like this one point of conflict that only happens like 2 times a game. And so it was like the whole thing was just nothing happening, and then like 10 players rush in and fight, and then leave again. So it was pretty funny.
Weird. Okay, I mean, because that's the one thing I can see with VR as far as becoming an esport, and just that this seems a little bit early. I mean, I guess you have to plan it at some point, but there's a lot of people that still have never even tried virtual reality, let alone getting a headset that's powerful enough to do that. Because you have to have the Vive or the Rift, I would imagine, would be the only two that could really handle something along those lines.
But if anyone's going to have the cash to throw down $600 for it's someone who's into esports.
That's true.
Who follows esports.
Yeah.
And plays competitive gaming. Like that's the kind of person who would buy a VR headset.
Right, just to compete in that aspect of it. And again, if you're just tuning into, we're talking about E3 and some of the games that these two guys saw when they were down there. And let us know what your favorite games were, which ones you're most excited about. I'm seeing some different comments coming through. Let's see, to the max insane AI. Okay, sorry. This is the problem of looking at these right as I'm saying them. Anthem looks sick. Different comments coming through. So let us know what you think about those. All right, so let's move on to a couple of other things, or any other games that you want to talk about. I know Age of Empires. You want to bring up that one?
We should probably talk about Age of Empires.
Age of Empires, yeah.
That was like at the PC gaming show. It's normally that's my third year going, and it's a fine show. They bring in some very PC focused kind of devs. Normally games like Killing Floor and things like that, where it's very much like these are Steam games.
Yeah.
These are not big console titles, and they'll roll out DLC. Things like the XCOM got announced there. And then Age of Empires was like the big finale, and everyone just went nuts. This game is like, it brings back so many good memories for people. And I actually got to have a conversation with the vice president of PC gaming at Xbox.
Nice.
He and I talked about Age of Empires, and one of the things that I thought was cool is that they weren't trying to build the game that people played. They were trying to build the game that people remember playing. That
really?
Because that's like, it's a really difficult thing to sort of balance nostalgia with what people want out of a modern title. Like people, because I bet if you went back and tried to play Age of Empires,
it's not as great as you remember.
Frustrated with the mechanics of it, and they were saying like things like units don't even face in the original game. Units can only face 4 directions. Now they can face 16, and there were all these bugs, and they've tried to like capture some of that. But they really, like I said, they really want to build the game that people remember playing. They want to create these systems that feel like they did and feel like how you remember. Because when games like that come out, they're so, like it's like even like Mario or something. You think about like some of these classic games, and you think about them in your head, and you're like, oh, it's beautiful. I remember playing that game, and I was like, wow, that's awesome looking, and this played so beautifully. And then you go try and you pick up an N64 controller, and it's like, wow, this game is kind of, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to say, they still they wanted to do online, and they want to do the map creation. They want to like bring in these sorts of achievements and things like that people expect from a 2017 title, while still being true to
having
people's
that's
memory of the game.
That's a tough balance to make.
Totally.
That's like making a sequel 20 years later. How can you hit that and not fail? There's a lot of room for failure on that. Yeah. But you said it's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely
cool.
exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, like
I'm assuming you didn't get a chance.
There's not a lot of games like that. Really, like the Age of Empires thing is still like fairly unique, and so I think that gets a lot of people excited about it because there's just not a lot of options if you want to play that kind of game.
Sure.
And also looking at you look at the screenshots of this, and it's kind of interesting what they're doing with it, because there actually is a like remastered edition of Age of Empires already out. But the problem is like you go and play it on a high resolution monitor, and it starts to look really sort of weird because you are like the original assets were so low resolution that when you play it on a high resolution monitor, you end up seeing like a huge part of the map, generally speaking, and everything looks really small, and like the units in particular tend to look very small.
Yeah.
So it looks like what they're doing with this 4K upgrade is they're kind of they've changed the scaling around. So you'll be playing at 4K and everything will look very detailed, but the buildings and the units are back to the size they should be, so it's more of a playable game, as opposed to the remastered edition, which is like fun for nostalgia's sake, but also it still has like some weird oddities to it.
Some of the old issues,
and that can kind of get just the translation from that original format to today's monitors without any sort of update to the graphics, really, other than just changing the resolution. So
right. Yeah, and if you're watching live right now, we're playing one of the demos. I think this is one of the demos from it for.
I mean, I think it's really what's going to be great about it is getting this re-release. You're going to have a community of people that are playing it. And Age of Empires is a really fun game to play online. Does just sort of screw around with. So that'll be great because being an older game right now, if you want to play that online, it's really you generally just have to have like a group of friends that want to do it, or you're probably going to be kind of out of luck.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that is interesting with the change in it. Okay.
You can see it's still got like a lot of the charm of the original game, like in the animations and stuff. Like it feels very much and looks very much like Age of Empires. So.
It really does. Yeah, they've done a really good job with that.
I really like the zoom level thing too, the way that you can scale that easily, because that's something that actually is like really important in modern real-time strategy games, I think.
Yeah.
Is having
to be able
the
to zoom in
levels to sort of see the big scope and also really zoom in for the macro or the micro detail.
Fun. It makes me want to play it. Just seeing that. I want to go play Age of Empire right now.
Yeah.
So how long till somebody mods a MOBA into it? And we just continue this endless loop of RTS MOBA.
All right, so Age of Empire. Let's get on to something else. We've been talking mostly PC games, but we'd be remiss to not bring up the Xbox One X. Finally, the revelation of the Project Scorpio that we've been talking about for how long? I mean, year?
About 6 months.
6
year.
months?
Yeah,
something like that. Which I will say, and we're going to talk about it. This isn't the focus of it, but Project Scorpio is such a better name than Xbox One X. But nonetheless, that is what it's going to be called. So the Xbox One X. Switch over to that. So how did you guys feel about the announcement? How do you feel about it?
I think that it's a really good, probably a really good console.
Yeah.
It's definitely the most powerful console by far, and it has all the features you would expect from a modern console.
Does it support VR? That was the one question I had.
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
It doesn't
so
support
that's
VR,
interesting.
Which I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But so and it's a little bit smaller than the Xbox One S, which was a little bit smaller than the Xbox One.
Right.
So I mean, really, from any angle, it's just a really nice looking console. It's $500, which is pricey, but I mean, I don't really know what you would expect.
Yeah, that seems to be about
it's a
average
new
for
console,
a brand new
it's
console.
a
Yeah,
fast one, so
they can't go lower than the PlayStation, on pricing. So,
I think there was also just sort of a sense of meh from a fair amount of circles, but I think that's just kind of where we are in gaming right now.
I think if you're definitely a PC gamer, as I can see, Christopher, if it doesn't have 6-core, 3.5 CPU, it's trash. PC all the way. So yeah, I doubt there's
very
much.
specific.
Well, actually, it does have more cores than a 6-core PC, so gotta be careful there.
Touche on that.
But there's just sort of a general disappointment, I think, because of this is where we are in gaming right now, because there's always this when are we going to get a generational leap? We want a generational leap, and it's it's just not going to happen anymore. Those days have ended.
What about the upscaling that they can do, with the older games?
The
backward compatibility.
Oh, the backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I actually so Ars Technica released a report saying that the vast majority of people don't play backwards compatible games.
Really?
And Microsoft came out and disputed that report, saying no, they don't have the right data. It's hard to say which data set is absolutely correct,
right? Because
Microsoft has its own incentives, and Ars Technica can't possibly work with the complete set of data because they're working outside of Microsoft. They don't have access to everything. But I suspect that Ars Technica's thing is actually fairly correct.
That people don't play their old games.
Very, very few people are you know what I'm gonna do today? I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play Halo 2.
Yeah.
Well, they probably do that. People do play Halo 2, to be fair, but they play.
Very few
the
people.
Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
Halo 2.
You play the Master Chief Collection.
That might be a good
if you're
question.
Gonna play anything, or you're just think of any Xbox 360 era game. Are you really? Is the thing you're gonna do today? Is you're really gonna go back to that Xbox 360 era game?
Yeah.
You're gonna go back and play, I don't know, Oblivion instead of Skyrim. I don't think people do that. But anyway.
That's a question I'd love to ask that right now, just on Facebook and YouTube. Is that a bonus for you? Is that something that you see as a benefit, that backward compatibility? Will you utilize that if you got the new Xbox One X, or is it like Matt's saying, you're probably not going back and playing those games anyway? Maybe in your mind you're thinking, the nostalgia factor, but do you really
I think
it's
really
play
parallels with the Age of Empires announcement. Because that's also a game that's going to be cool, and a fair amount of people are going to buy that,
right?
And it'll be fun, but it's really not a mind blowing thing. It's just kind of neat and fun, and in backwards compatibility, it's neat and fun. When you announce it, people go nuts.
Yeah.
They lose it. They're "Wow!" cheering, clapping in the crowds. Whoa! And then people will probably play it for a few hours and
they'll be
okay,
stop. That's it. Yeah.
I think it depends a lot on the title. I agree that I don't think most people are gonna pull up their library of old Xbox 360 games and be
right.
What will I play today? But Age of Empires, people will play that. Things like Crimson Skies, that's an original Xbox game that people have.
Actually, I had
really,
exactly
really
the opposite
wanting.
reaction. I thought that's a game people are going to load up, they're going to play for an hour, and they're going to be geez, gaming's come an awful long way since then. Like, because I played that game too, and like it was a fun game for the time, but I'm not gonna play that over any modern game.
But
Are you kidding me?
it's done.
I might. I'd check it out.
Dan behind the scenes here just said it's going to depend on if I still need a disc or if I can get it from the store, which I would doubt. I mean, are they really going to render all these old games for the store just to have them? So maybe if you want to play them, that seems like an awful lot of work for that. So that's a good question, though.
Dan also brought up the Ninja Gaiden series.
Yeah, okay.
Another good, like there are games out there that people would play, but I agree. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, like what Xbox original game am I going to play today? It's like like each person maybe has a couple of games that they will play.
Yeah.
Like I know personally, there's this random Xbox One game called Death Row, or Xbox original Xbox game called Death Row. It's full contact ultimate frisbee. It's super dumb. But I love that game. Like I used to play the crap out of it, and I'll probably, I actually own a copy of it for original Xbox, but that's besides the point. Like if that was an option on my Xbox One, I might pick it up every once in a while and play it. But
so it's a nice bonus.
Splinter Cell, that might be nice.
See, they
don't play those. They don't make those games anymore. So,
so I mean, there's a couple of benefits to that. Then, I mean, definitely, probably not an influencing factor for buying the console.
But
general.
It's not going to be every
nice
Xbox game. Just to be clear, like
it's just some of them.
That was something that sort of got taken, I think, and they said Xbox compatibility and everything.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, all the games. And it happened the same thing with Xbox 360. Like they announced that and it was like, yes, my whole library. I'm gonna go buy a bunch of cheap games from GameStop. And it's like, no, don't do that. Like it's gonna be like, I don't know, like 30 games or something that launch.
Is that really it? Okay.
I don't remember the exact number, but it's like one of those like lower tens of games.
Yeah.
Number. And they'll expand it over time, but don't freak out just yet. Like, see what the compatibility list is because it's going to be limited at launch. So,
all right. Well, so there we go. Talking about the Xbox One X and just some of the different factors with that. Zach says I wouldn't just because I've played those older games like that too much. Which, that's true. I mean, once you beat it a couple of times, do you want to go back for it? And that's kind of what we're talking about is how much of an influence this backward compatibility issue will be for people when they buy that. But overall, just talking about E3, I think we're starting to run out of time. So we kind of covered some of the best PC games that these guys saw down at E3, and then talking about the Xbox One X. Overall, was there anything that stood out that was the most impressive thing for either of you at E3, or was it all just fairly? I don't know. I don't know what the right word it is. I don't want to put the word in your mouth, but was there anything that really stood out that you were really excited about, or was it kind of a bland show?
I do feel like for me it was Destiny 2.
Yeah.
And I think that's a game that's kind of divisive because some people don't really get it. And some people have just like lived and breathed that game for years. And that's like sort of, I mean, a lot of games are like that. But I think in this case in particular, it was very much like getting to play that game that I loved. And I always sort of hated wrangling with a controller because I'm not that good with shooting on a controller. And kind of feeling like coming home to that game on the PC was something that really stood out to me.
Yeah, that's cool. Matt, what about you?
Well, I think E3 is not a big PC gaming sort of show. It's really more focused on consoles. So I don't think there's any like one big announcement for PC gaming. Like the Age of Empires thing is probably the biggest PC only announcement because we didn't know about that at all before the show that came out of the show. There were two things I thought were neat. There was an indie game called the Swords of Ditto that's coming out for the PC and PlayStation next year. And it's a roguelite that takes basically the entire Zelda franchise and compacts it into one game.
What?
So each session, like each individual like gameplay session is kind of like the loop of a Zelda game where you wake up, you get your sword, you go fight the bad guy, you win
Collect
or you
hearts.
lose.
Yeah.
The world either advances or it falls back in the darkness. And you sort of have that nice little progression loop there. It was a very well-crafted game, good art style, lots of enemy variety, as you would expect from that kind of game, because Zelda games always have, like, each enemy has this little gimmick.
Right.
So that looked like a lot of fun. And it has co-op, so that's also a nice part of it.
That's cool.
Another game, PC only. I think it's PC only. It might be coming out for Xbox, because some of these games port over. But it's Avon Colony, which is it's a basically you're building a colony on a planet called Avon.
Okay.
some other planet.
Yeah.
And you have to manage it and get your people to survive on
Fight
that.
off aliens or
On that. It actually gave me sort of vibes of Outpost franchise, which I don't know, like probably not everyone's going to remember that, but it's a really old PC franchise where you were kind of having this colony on another planet, and you had to manage it. There also was some fighting elements more in that game than in Aven Colony, but you do have the like aliens that are going to attack your colony, and you have to
build defenses
fight them off
and,
sometimes. And it just seems like a pretty cool little management game if you're into those sort of games, which I am very much into those kind of games. I got to play it for a solid 30 minutes, so that was a nice demo of it. So those are the PC, more focused games that I saw, which really stood out.
Zach knows Outpost and loves it. So
Yeah.
Zachary. So there are people that
check out
remember
Aven
that.
Colony then. It might scratch
Colony.
the same itch for you.
That sounds awesome. Well, and we've got all the coverage at digitaltrends.com too of all of E3 and the Best in Show awards. There's a ton of stuff all on the website that you can check out. And again, this is close to the metal, so we go live every week, usually on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Today we're on Monday, which is my fault because I'm out tomorrow. So thank you guys for accommodating that. And check out all the coverage right there and subscribe to all of our podcasts on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. We have those in the audio version. Watch these versions. Let us know what games you liked, or if you have comments, questions, always email those in at podcast@digitaltrends.com. And thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week.